adolescence drama, when a lot of schools wanted to know a little bit more about some of the things that were talked about in that drama that were particularly linked to incel culture. So we developed that then, and we've been delivering it to a range of people since then. It has been updated a little bit. It does relate mostly to incel culture, not to wider misogyny, which goes a little bit beyond, but we will reference some of those factors that are beyond incel. But today we are focusing on incel culture. So I would like to do a bit of interaction, so you can either respond in the chat or unmic yourself and speak. What words come to mind? What do you think when I say incel? What do you think that is? What do you think about? So you can either write in the chat or unmute and speak. So we've got misogyny and misandry. Yeah, well done, Lauren. Online influencers, yes, there's a lot of online stuff going on, which we'll talk about. Does anyone know where the word incel comes from? If you do, you can type that in or say it. So we've got misogyny, vulnerability and grooming. Yeah, very good. Yeah, Charlie and Liz, involuntary celibate. That's exactly what the word is short for. So it's an isolated two. Great. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to go through a presentation, which hopefully you'll all be able to see. So we're talking about understanding incel culture. So I can't see the chat now, but we will hopefully have Paul, can you speak if there are any questions that come like that?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I'll keep an eye on the chat.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So so I know that from my work in schools, a lot of people are very aware of young people who are suffering from misogyny, who've experienced it, but also young men that some of these things will be relevant to. So I know that those things are coming about in schools. If you've got any questions, type them in the chat as we go in. Also, where it's very hot, so if you need a bit of time out to go and get a drink, please feel free to. I don't think we've any other ground rules to go for. So just wondering if anyone knows what any of these stand for. If you can, it's easy for me if you unmute yourself and tell me. If not, I'll go through them. Anyone know what GNOC stands for? You can type in the chat and someone can read it out. Paul can read it out if you don't want to shout it out. Yeah, anybody, if you want to just unmute yourself and shout them out, then please do. Anybody know GNOC? This is all text speak that is used, particularly comes from a lot of misogynistic stuff, but a lot of young people are using it. So this is just a bit to get us talking and thinking about it. Nobody got that? Anyone said anything for that, Paul? Okay.
Nope, nothing yet.
Nobody's got that. Okay, so that stands for get naked on camera. You've got a little bit of a clue for the next one because the OC is the same. So anybody want to hazard a guess what NIFOC stands for? Nobody will go through them quite quickly because anybody, did someone say something then?
Not naked in front of camera.
I heard not in front of camera, not quite, but
naked in front of camera.
Naked in front of camera, yeah. So that's naked in front of camera. KPC. Okay, that one's keep parent clueless. CU 46. I can send you out the answers to all this afterwards. So CU 46, someone must be able to get that one. CU is obvious. CU 46 for
CU for 6.
CU for 6, yeah. CD9 is code 9. There's lots of different numbers of these. I don't know them all, but code 9 is parents in the room. So it's kind of a warning for whoever you're on camera with. Just type that on quickly and no parents in the room. LMIRL is let's meet in real life. WTTP is want to trade pictures, and POS is similar to the code 9 parent over shoulder. So there's lots of these abbreviations, text speak, that are in use, that are used in text, on chat, on web page, on social media pages that young people are using that keep other people in the dark. And there's also going to be loads of other very specific ones that might just be to a particular group of young people. Young people will always invent their own. So if you're seeing abbreviations on young people's pages, ask them what they mean. They might not even know. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. They might not even know what they mean. So it's really important that we talk to young people about what they're saying, what they're hearing, and what they're seeing. So we're not going to talk a lot about the manosphere, and we're not a lot, but the incels come from a group, is one of a group of online communities which focus on the issues of men and masculinity. It all starts from a lens of perceived social injustice. So the world, the view is that the world is against men. They're rejecting ideals of gender equality. They believe that feminists have taken things too far, and now the world is working against men. There are lots of distinct cultures within that. So there's men's rights activists. Some of those are kind of the fathers for access to their children's group. So they're looking at legal social policy issues which affect men. There are red pill communities, and that's particularly what we're going to be focusing on today. So they're the incel communities or red pill communities that have theories about dating, attraction, and gender dynamics, particularly within dating. So we're going to come to that and spend most of our time on this in a few minutes, but I just wanted to briefly look at some of the other things that are going on in the manosphere. Pickup artists, so that would be about teaching men how to date, what sort of skills they will need if they're going to get women. Men Going Their Own Way is about men saying we don't need women, we don't need marriage, we don't need long-term relationships, we don't need women at all. We'll just be dependent on ourselves. And then the self-improvement creators, and a lot of the current influencers, manosphere influencers, would fit into this category. So they focus on fitness, discipline, finance, looks, developing money, developing careers, often without the more ideological aspects of the manosphere. But one of the similarities is they're very negative towards women, and they'll use women to help them get to where they want to be. So generally in all those 5 groups, there's an element of misogyny and harassment. So misogyny is hatred of women. Harassment would be harassing women to get what you want. There's also radicalization of young men online. So young men may not start off wanting to have these views, but they see so many of them online. They might see men that they look up to online who hold those views, and they think they must be right. They might be very vulnerable young men who are looking for a role model, who find other men to look up to, who share very negative views about themselves. And they'll spread ideas about gender and society, often pseudoscientific evidence to back it up. So that'll be theories, sometimes they appear very well thought out theories about why things are so bad for men in society, and they can create some really well thought through theories about that. There's also a dehumanizing of women. So framing interactions of power, manipulation, or utility. So believing that women are just there to manipulate men, but women are actually there to be used by men. Sorry, my microphone muted itself then. I don't know why. Can you hear me again now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Liz. Yeah.
Right, so I've stopped sharing my screen. I haven't had to go back to that, so I'll just share again. Oh no, I'm still sharing my screen. Can you still can you see the PowerPoint again? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you just need to
I've just minimized it. Yeah,
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, brilliant.
So what we also saw a lot of in the adolescence film was things that adults didn't understand, and some of that was that text speak, which is more commonly used, but there was a lot of talk of heart emojis and what that means. So these have hidden meanings within those manosphere cultures. And young people will often use these emojis for all sorts of things. You'll see different coloured hearts for all sorts of reasons, and young people don't necessarily know what they would mean in a manosphere culture. But if you're worried about them, the red one in these cultures means love. The purple one is I'm feeling horny. Yellow is I'm interested. Are you interested? The next one's a pink one with a black boundary, which is I'm interested but not in sex. The orange one is a nice reassuring one, you're going to be fine. The green one stands for growth and harmony. The black one, sorrow and grief, and the white one is purity. So there was some talk in that about emojis that had been seen on the pages of the two young people who were the key characters of adolescence that some people didn't understand. Whether they did or not is again another matter, because lots of people use different coloured emojis for all sorts of things. But it's really important when you're seeing things that you don't understand on young people's pages, that you're talking to them about what it means. They might be getting a message from somebody else. You imagine they've got the yellow, I'm interested or you're interested, and they've just responded with another yellow heart because they think it's very nice because they didn't understand, and the other person has got the message that they're interested in sex. So it's really important, not that we necessarily understand them all, because I think they'll change over time and change in different cultures, but that we know they might have hidden meanings, and we talk to young people about their understanding of it. So a bit about the history of incels. So incel stands for involuntary celibate, and it's generally part of an active and growing online community. It was started up by actually a female Canadian student in the early 90s. So she was not having sex. She was a bit upset about that. She wondered if other people were having the same experiences. She was struggling in her relationship with men, and set up what was meant to be a supportive online peer group for other people, not just women and men, who were having similar experiences to her, to just chat about kind of why that is, and if there's anything they can do, if it's normal. So it was, and to encourage other people that were experiencing the same sort of thing, that may be struggling with sexual activity or romantic rejection. She, a little while later, identified as bisexual, comfortable with her sexuality, started to be more successful with sexual relationships, and gave the site away to some of the men that were already on that site. And it was then after that it evolved into something different, with elements that were much more toxic, and not so much about supporting, but about spreading those negative views, which we'll go into a little bit more. There is still limited research. There's often thought about people committing violence about that, and there's some of that, but there's not a lot known about what goes on. A lot of these online sites are very secretive, so we don't always know what's going on. And there's been some study of them, but not loads of study. And so there's limited research that's reviewed conversations that have happened. But to review them, you have to get into them, and that has happened a little bit, but not that much. So we don't know that much about them. They largely exist in misogynist online forums, frequented mostly by men now. Women are demonized. There are a large number of men who may identify as incel, or may just be part of the communities that would not support violence, so they're not all violent. Obviously, the adolescence was about some extreme violence towards women, and that is definitely a feature, but it's not universal. There's a lot of dehumanizing language about women, as I think a few people said in the chat at the beginning. Social isolation is quite key to it. So a lot of the men involved are very socially isolated, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I said it started in the mid 1990s, when they were male dominated incel sites, but there was no violence seen for quite some time. So it was the late 2010s when the first violence was seen. But that research that has happened finds that there's over 1,000 references to misogynistic or violent action recorded in these sites every day. this was from 2021, which is the latest I could find it. So in the 5 years, it had gone up 8 years. So there's a lot of negative references to women and lots of references to violence in incel communities. And the other figure that's really disturbing, which is it goes beyond incel sites, is that within 10 minutes of going online, a quarter of 11 to 14-year-old boys will see some negative comment about females. And that's not boys looking for it. It's just boys who've gone online onto social media. The algorithms mean they are sent information which is negative about females very quickly. So the ideological belief, the worldview of incels is that they're discriminated against. Society is against men and favours women. Women are more sexually selective, have lower levels of sexual promiscuity, and we'll talk a little bit about Chad's and Stacey's and Becky's, which are kind of some of the characterizations they use. But they believe that 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men. So only 20% of men, and these aren't normally the incels, they're other men, are the only ones that 80% of the women in the world will be attracted to. So if you're one of the 80% of men that don't fit into that very attractive group of men, you stand a very poor chance of ever attracting women. They blame women for most of their woes, particularly feminists. You know, feminists were all about making society equal. They weren't interested in that, but actually believe things have gone the other way and that actually women have more power than them. There's actually elements of incel culture on both sides of the political spectrum. So on the extreme right and the extreme left. In this country, we've talked much more about misogynist views from the right, but actually there are examples of that from the political left as well. And there's blames on wokeism, but also a range of other things, you know, society being equal. Most people do not support violence, but there are some elements of violent extremism and violent fantasies. So there are quite a lot of large online communities that are on the sites at the bottom. Some of them are quite well known, some of them are less well known. 4chan, lookism.net, Discord, Telegram, incels.co, YouTube and X are all common places where incel communities can be found. As we know about all all online communities, they become an echo chamber. So young men who are already having some negative views, feeling isolated, who are attracted to these, will have their views reinforced and their views will become more extreme. The forums are unregulated, so all sorts of terrible things have been found in them. And as we know, again, the anonymous nature of the internet means they feel more comfortable to express or view negative attitudes and experiences they wouldn't feel comfortable engaging with in the real world. So some of these boys and young men might be lonely young men who aren't expressing these views at school or in college, but are expressing them online. So they might just be the quiet ones sat at the back who are feeling uncomfortable and not doing very well at making any sort of friends, particularly friendships with the opposite sex. But they might be online expressing some really, really negative views that we're not seeing. So the incel, the one incel.com, which I talked about, which is the only one labelled with incel in the title, is a relatively small one, but the most extreme one. So it had at its peak just 369 active users, but it also had that extra, the 99-1 rule, where 90% of users are likely to lurk silently. So there were about 3,000 to 5,000 plus lurkers on there, and they're often the younger, more vulnerable, less likely to be expressing those views outside in the world, less likely to be picked up as vulnerable online, but also having quite a lot of, the communities will have quite a lot of influence on them. They probably wouldn't identify as incel. The people that do identify as incel are relatively small, and it's probably in the region of that 369. But there's a lot of lurkers that are picking up on those views and adopting negative attitudes towards women and relationships, but not actually saying they're an incel. So then some of the the views from their misogyny, hopelessness, antisocial worldviews are internalised inside of them, and those young people are harder to detect. So that quote at the bottom, every one person posting an incel formula, dozens more silently reading, and they're often the students we never hear from but need us the most. So I said I'd talk about Chad and Stacey. So these are two characters that are created by incel culture. So they're not created by people who identify as Chad or Stacey. They're created as the stereotypical alpha male, have the best genetics and get all the sex, and they're the 20% of men. The Stacys are the ones who control who gets the sex. So they're the women. I'll show you the images in a minute. They're the women who are very in control. The Chads would want to sleep with the Stacys, and they control who gets sex. Incels feel they're owed sex by the Stacys, but they would never stand a chance of having sex with them. So here's some pictures. So we've got the Chad here, who's got firmly fastened hair that never goes out of place. He's very butch, he's very buff. He's got some strange characteristics. He's got a very big crotch there. So he tiptoes around like he's going to the store. And this is designed by the incel. So this was designed by incels, not Chads, to kind of take the mick out of them a little bit. And then the virgin walk is what they've created to characterize themselves. So they'd be very dull, very boring, not give eye contact, very stooped, walk too fast, just always look a bit awkward with stiff arms. And then the female equivalents of the Stacey, who again, these are devised by the incel people. These are ones that have been taken out of their culture. So I just apologise for some of the words used there. But she'd be very big tits, long blonde hair, your kind of Barbie girl type with lots of money. And she would have sex with the Chads. And she's the one that controls who has sex. The Becky is a much more normal sort of woman. But she still wants to have sex with the Chad. She doesn't, but that's what she'd want. She's got the minimum wage job in Starbucks. She's struggling in life. She's a bit nerdy. And there's lots more of these characters that are around in incel cultures. But if you see young people talking about these things, it's really important to talk about where they've been seeing them and what they understand by them. Yeah. We'll go on. We'll leave the emojis because I think we'll run out of time. No, I will show you the emojis actually. I'm just going to stop sharing. This is a quiz I do when I do it face to face with people. So if we were face to face, I'd give you all one of these and ask you if you can guess the emoji. So I'm not going to show you all of them. I'm just going to put these up and see if anyone can have a go at guessing what they mean. And then we'll go through some of them. Anyone got an idea what any of those mean? So these would be emojis used in text speak or online chats.
Can't see any, Liz.
Can't see anything.
Oh, you can't see any, sorry.
No.
And that's because I stopped sharing my PowerPoint but didn't share again. So my fault there, sorry. Can you see them now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a bit hesitant to answer because I've been told off by my young adult sons for using emojis during text messages that I shouldn't be using, apparently.
Yeah, and of course all emojis, they all have a definition, but in different places they mean different things. So our young people might use them to mean one thing and someone else might interpret it differently. So I'll send to Paul to send out a list of this whole sheet, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll share the answer sheet because that's probably, if we were doing this face to face, I'd get you to have a guess and then we'd share the answer sheet afterwards. But what I'm going to do is put the answer sheet up next so you can actually see what this has come from. Can you see the answer sheet now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 100 emoji is just that belief of the 80-20 rule that 80% of women are only attracted to 20% of men. The red and yellow pill was one that was noted on adolescents, and I think had been on some of the young lads' pages. So some people have described him as an incel, and that red and yellow pill is a description of an incel. We'll come to the red, blue and black ones in a minute, because I've got another slide about that. There's quite a lot of not very nice ones. So this one, bone smashing, which I've also got for you that I'll send to you, some terminology that's commonly used. So we talked about the typical attractive male would have very prominent cheekbones. And there is something that's happened in incel communities where young men have smashed the bones in their face to reshape them to become more attractive, which is, you know, quite a scary thing. So the violence isn't always directed to other people, but can be directed to themselves. There's this baby bottle, which is used to mock men who are emotional or dependent on women, so weak or beta males. You know, we're all trying to encourage men to express their emotions more, but this may be used on a man's page to say he is too emotional.
Yeah.
We've got this wilted rose,
It's all right.
which could be put.
Like all these emojis, you wouldn't even think of me, you know.
Just people just go on mute, please.
Yasmin,
Can you come off mute, Yasmin?
just put yourself on mute, Yasmin.
Thank
Thanks.
I'm sorry that I did.
It's fine. So the wilted rose could be put on a women's page, often a woman over 30 because she's past her prime and beyond it. The frog is to tell someone they're ugly. So all these things might appear, you know, that if someone put that on mine, I'd just think of it as a cute frog. I wouldn't think someone was telling me they were ugly. And the clown is men that are overly supportive of women. So there's lots of these, and I'll send this sheet to Paul afterwards. So he can send it out to everyone just to make you a little bit more aware of some of them. But as I say, they mean lots of different things to different people. As you know, when your children and you will use emojis very differently, but it's just important if young people are getting confused about emojis they're sending, that we kind of look at where they're coming from, what they mean by them, what they mean by what they're sending, how they can be misinterpreted. So helping young people to think through their use of emojis is really important. These are talked about a lot in incel community. The red pill, so that comes from the Matrix film. So the red pill is an awakening, and incels are awakened to the previous reality that people could be equal and women could be equal to men. So once you've got, if the red pill was put on someone's page, it's like you've become aware of what's going on with the world and that men are being oppressed by women. The blue pill is those people that accept mainstream medias or ideas. And the black pill is a really quite a scary one, which is also present in incel community. So that's the belief that you will be a virgin forever. It's predetermined by genetics, so there's nothing you can do about it. Because of your genetics, because you're not a Chad, you're not one of those 20% of men that can have sex with women, you're never going to get sex. You're going to be on your own, lonely forever. And suicide is presented in the communities as inevitable, and sometimes that the worthlessness that goes with being a black pill incel person means that suicide is presented as the only option, which is quite scary, isn't it? There's lots of different memes around the incel culture. I found another two that are quite often used. This is kind of represents that black pill person. So this is a bald, melancholic cartoon figure with a wistful gaze. So it represents somebody that really has no hope. So that could be used. You could see that on social media sites. And then there's also these other two, liberated feminists. And again, that's not a positive thing, being a liberated feminist. Again, these are designed within the incel culture. So there's lots of negative things about her, wearing clothes that barely fit, using fake tan, creepy flower tattoos that now she regrets. She's got damaged hair from over dyeing. She claims she's bisexual, but has only dated men. So clearly isn't bisexual, but's pretending that. To avoid having to have sex, the fact that she can't have sex with the Chads. And then you've got the Trad wife who dresses very dully, very boringly. She loves her family first, her race second, and country third in that order. She homeschools her kids so they won't be influenced by wider society, and her husband has to go to work to support her. So there's some other things. So again, there's just lots of negative views of different types of women that are being circulated to these men that are engaging in incel communities. So why do you think might young men be drawn to incel groups? And if I can get, I think we've had some reasons, but if you've got any more, you can either put them in the chat or call them out. What do you think might mean young men might be drawn to these groups?
In the chat, Liz, we've got a sense of belonging. That's from Lauren.
Yeah, that's really important. They find other men that they belong with. Yeah.
Feeling rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Claire. Isolation. Alex. Friendships if they cannot make them, from Nicola. Alex again, grooming.
Yeah, so that all those things are true. They might go because they can't find anyone who's having the same experiences as them, which is why the original woman set up the group, to find other people who are going through what she was going through. So they might just be looking for someone else that has their experiences, but all those other things, isolation, and they can be groomed into them. So I've got a list of those on the next page that we'll come to. What would we look for to see that a young person might be being influenced by these groups or these views? What would you look for in young people?
Liz, changing behaviour or changing attitude. Yeah, quite.
Yeah, so you might see over a period of time, it might be quite a short, it might be a longer period of time, somebody that had very good friendships with women is changing his approach to women. Or they might not have had very good, they might have been keeping themselves to themselves and now are being negative towards women. So you might be seeing changes, Yeah,
in the chat, again, we've got changing behaviour, Jasmine, Lauren. Misogynistic views, degrading comments made to female staff. Nicola, a change in how they react towards female staff in school. So we're going to change. Lauren, again, defiance towards women.
Yeah, and we're hearing a lot about that from schools. I don't know what you're seeing, but really negative attitudes to female staff is something that is coming. We're hearing a lot about. So those are the sort of things that you'd look out for. We're going to talk a little bit in a little while about what we do about that, but we'll come to that. So here's some of the push factors. So we talk about push factors that are pushing young men towards these groups, and pull factors, which I'll come to after, which are the grooming type. So most of these we've got isolated, do not belong, looking for a place to belong, other people having the same experience as them, unmet aspirations, low self-esteem, sense of injustice, being confused about what's going on in the world and trying to get answers. There are a lot of young boys that feel that girls are getting a much better deal, they're doing better at school, they're better at things, they get treated better, they're not in trouble as much. So all those sort of things can be those factors that lead that boys are thinking girls aren't having the same experience as me. And then there are also pull factors, and again we talked about some of these that pull young people to them, and these apply to all extremist terrorist groups, lots of different organisations, could be an individual as well, that offers a sense of community and a support network. It promises a sense of fulfilment or excitement. It makes them feel special and part of something wider, something that's got a bigger mission, that's going to try and change the world and make the world better for people like them. It does offer a very narrow, manipulated version of identity that often supports stereotypical gender norms. So if they've already got those gender norms, they're more likely to be attracted to that. So feeling that their views are being validated. In offering inaccurate answers or falsehood to grievances. So if they've got grievances about the way they've been treated, maybe that's been about female teachers telling them off at school, and actually it's because of their behaviour, but it'll give them a view that actually these women teachers are against me because I'm male and it's nothing I've done about it. there was also a lot of conspiracy theories there as well in a lot of online community groups. So they'll hear a lot of conspiracy theories. Promoting us and them gives them an in crowd. You know, they can be the us, not the them. It blames specific communities. That's very similar to the one above. Encourage the use of hatred and violent actions to get justice and ideas of supremacy. So this is a little process of radicalisation that can happen for some boys and young men. So they might be bored, lonely, frustrated about dating failures and feeling a bit angry about women because they're not having any success. It might just be that they're socially awkward and they're too shy to talk to girls, and other people are doing it and they don't know how to do that, but they feel angry at women because of that. They then will explore digital spaces to find validation and belonging, and will end up finding some of these incel communities just about their own feelings of failure and frustration to start with, but then they become exposed to the hateful, toxic, misogynistic views in an echo chamber, and so that ideology starts to feel okay and normal. The banter, humour, emojis and memes are seen and become normalised. So they see them a lot, they become normal, and that's where we might start to see it in the banter they're using in the real world, in the outside world. They might also show, so you might see some of those emojis or memes. So really important to ask them where they're seeing them if you do see them on their pages. And then we get to the radicalisation, so they start to embrace the views of the group. It's not just a bit of fun anymore and a place to feel better. It starts to become quite harmful. The ultimate is that awareness and celebration of violence attacks by other incels, and I'm going to come on to that next. So there have been some high-profile violent attacks by incels, which are promoted and celebrated online. I think my next slide will take me to that. So these are kind of a bit of an order to them. So the first well-known one was in California in 2014, where Elliot Rodger, who was just 22 and did self-identify as an incel, killed 6, injured 14, and then took his own life. Alex Minassian is probably the most famous. He was 25 when he killed 10 people and injured 16, and he did that by driving a vehicle into a group of students in Canada. Nicholas Cruz, also in the same year, killed 17 and injured 17 at Stoneman College. That was quite a famous high school killing that was very much linked to misogynistic views. There's so many high school killings in America, but there are a few that have been linked to misogynist views. Jake Davison was the first big one in this country, which is in 2021. It was the Plymouth shooting. So he was 22. He killed 5 and injured 2 people. He started off by killing his mum, and very often misogynists do have a hatred of their mum because they blame her. She's the first significant woman in their life, and they blame her for their lack of opportunities. So he started with his mum and then went into the street and killed other people. There were 2 women and a man and his adopted daughter, who was a little girl. So it's not just women they kill in a lot of these other cases. It's not just women, because they don't just blame women for their problems, it's other men. Trezhenko was 21. He didn't actually kill anyone, but he'd got a manifesto that was discovered online and was planning to kill 3,000 people. It was a large female event in Ohio in 2021, and he was sentenced to 80 months for that. Then we have a few local ones, and the one that we most recognise as being linked to incel was Owen Lawrence. Just over a year ago, the crossbow attack in Headingley. Does anyone remember that? He attacked, yep. Yeah, so it was obviously very local to us. He attacked 2 women. They were seriously injured, but neither of them died, fortunately. And an hour before his attack, he'd post on social media listing the things he hated. And these were the things: gender equality, bisexual relationships, Islamic extremists, feminoids, female empowerment, dumb, people, fat people and normies. So he'd posted that just before. There are a few other high profile cases in the country where there's not been mention of incel, but there's a lot of talk about whether there was definitely misogynism in the background of the man that the Southport killings, where he attacked the 3 little girls at the Taylor Swift dance class. So although that's not identified with incel and it wasn't labelled as so in the court case, there's kind of theories that it was. And also the attack at the Manchester Arena at the Ariana Grande contest, where people of all genders were attacked, but there was a hatred of females involved. There were lots of little girls there. So a number other that may have links to them, but we don't know for definite they were. So Alex Missanian, who's the second of those 2 that I mentioned, he shouted before he killed, "The incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger." Elliot Rodger was the one that had killed people 4 years before. And so they're celebrated online, and sometimes they're actively encouraged to carry out further attacks. But definitely, even where there's not further attacks on other people, that suicide thing is encouraged a lot and seen a lot in incel culture. Another thing from Alex Manasian was, "I don't know why girls are not attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it. So I'm going to punish all girls because nobody is attracted to me." There are some cases where incel ideology is now considered a terrorist threat. It was the Canada one so it was from it was the 2018 attack that went through courts in February 2020 in Canada, and the guy was prosecuted as a terrorist. In the UK, nobody has been prosecuted as a terrorist yet, but it's recognised as a hate crime. So it is being considered terrorism, and the incel community isn't treated as a terrorist group. However, it will be considered in attacks whether it is terrorism. So we have the prevent strategy. So we have prevent in Bradford, and we can refer young people to that if we're worried about incel. So it's not just about things that are more clearly linked with terrorism. If you're worried that a young person is being radicalized and involved in the incel community, you can refer to prevent. On account of these strategic objectives, so it's responding to the ideological challenge of terrorism and the threat we face from those who promote it, prevent people from being drawn into terrorism, ensure they're given promote advice and support, and work with sectors and institutions where there are risks of radicalisation that we need to address. So because of particularly that last one, we can refer into prevent for young people who are concerned about being radicalised through incel culture. And at the moment, on average, and this again is 2 years ago, I haven't got most recent figures, but it's about 60 referrals per year. I suspect that after last year in adolescence, that might be more, but we haven't got the figures through yet for that. So just touching more on misogyny. So there was recently Louis Theroux did a documentary, Inside the Manosphere. So the Manosphere is he more looked at people that fitted into that last category, who are kind of promoting fitness and health and looks and becoming rich. And here are some of the people he interviewed. I would definitely recommend you watching that. He didn't interview Andrew Tate. We've all heard of Andrew Tate. We all know a lot about him. Andrew Tate refused to be interviewed by Louis Theroux. But there were these other 5 he did interview, and it was very interesting. And a lot of young people are talking about these people, not before Louis Theroux did his documentary. So they're very influential on social media, and young boys around Bradford are aware of them and are being influenced by them. There's only, I think, Sneeko who kind of links up with that red pill stuff, but they're very much into men becoming rich, becoming famous, becoming better looking, and using women to do that. So there's a lot of talk about men using women and promoting. So OnlyFans was very much thought of a place where women could kind of have control of their own sexuality, and if they were selling sex, they could do it and be in control of that. But a lot of these men are now taking control of those women and saying, we've got loads of influencers, we can get you lots of views, you give us a percentage of your money. And then they're controlling them and giving them things to do. So OnlyFans is often being controlled by some of these so they can make money. So it's definitely worth watching that to get an idea. So come on, Tim, we've got 10 minutes to go, but this is probably the most important bit, what we can do about it. So a lot of the stuff we're doing in schools is looking at safety of women and girls and preventing violence against women and girls, and teaching healthy, respectful relationships from an early age, and that's working with young women and young men. We are promoting progressive masculinity. We avoid talks of toxic masculinity. We try and give positive messages to young men about the sort of young men they can be, rather than talking about toxic masculinity, which is very blaming of young men. And it's very important we talk to young people about what they're engaging with online, what they're doing online, and parents need to come in on that. So if we can do an education with parents, that's really important to help parents be aware that their young people aren't safe online. And I think there's been a lot more publicity around that recently. It's really important to talk to young people about what they're seeing, question the things they're seeing, but also encourage them to question them. So teaching young people to question the things they're seeing, challenging things. Not everything they see online is true, and to engage with a wide variety of material. It's really important they encourage debates and listen to viewpoints that are not their own. We all get into echo chambers online, but it's really important to try and look at things that we don't necessarily agree with, and get young people to do that too. So if they are in those very negative ones, encourage them to look at other ones as well. And that's kind of goes within our education on online safety. Listening, not judging. Challenging everyday sexism. So from a very early age, promoting positive views of men and women, and also challenging any sexist attitudes we're hearing, or stereotypical attitudes, and that goes both ways. Promoting the rights of all protective characteristics. We're not just talking gender here, we're talking race, disability, just promoting people being who they are and being allowed to be who they are. That includes sexuality. Challenging misogyny when you feel safe to. Pick up on concerns early, support those that are lonely and vulnerable, so offering them things that they can do that are positive. Be aware of what's going on, and there's some links at the end to help you be aware of what's out there. So I've put some links to some things that have been in media recently, but they'll obviously change. And this is something that's changing all the time. Talking about positive role models, one of the best activities I think we do in schools is we talk about what is a man. And so we ask young people, what do you see as a man? And they often describe some of those things that might be in that chat. They're big, they're muscular, they're strong, they're tall, they're powerful. Some of those words come out, not all, but some of them do. And then we say, what is a good man? And that changes the discussion a bit, and they come up with some very different words, that they're supportive, they're honest, they can be trusted. And then we ask them what sort of man you want to be. And very often they do want to be the good man. So they might see what they think of as a man and think that's what I should strive to be, because that's what I see online. But actually a good man is something quite different. And those qualities are the ones I really want. And we talk about, how do you want to be remembered after you've gone? How do you want your family to talk about you? And they want to be that good man. So here's some supportive information that you'll get sent out. Some of those guides to symbols are there, but I took a selection off that. So there's some links there of things you can look at. More programs that have been on there. There's a glossary here, which again, lots of different words that are used, but I've put the meanings of all those at the end, so you've got them there. What doing time? We're on 23 minutes past, so I'm going to stop sharing. We've got time for questions. Are these kills in? Yeah, Lauren's put. Yeah, sorry, I've answered that.
Yeah, you sort of answered that, Liz. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Have we got any questions? if we've got time, I've got a couple of brief case studies we could discuss, but I'm not sure if we've got time for them. But let's see if we've got any questions first. Anyone got any questions?
Either raise your hand or put it in the chat. That's fine. I'll keep an eye on
that. Liz, yeah, hi. I've got a quite well. I don't want to make it personal between just me and you, but is this something we would be delivering in schools, like maybe like an awareness workshop or something?
Yeah, so currently this is something we've delivered to teachers. We include some of this in some of our, it won't be you, Kieran, because you're delivering on the S contract, not the RSE contract, but we might bring you to help us on some of that at some point. But yeah, we do deliver work on school on positive relationships. We do stereotypes. We do some work on harmful relationships. Yeah. So slightly differently, what we don't teach